Okay, so this is the API which we had yesterday, which we created, and I'm running it now. And you should always see for errors. So when you run this here, you should see something like this. The last statement should be started application JVM running for this. If you don't see this and there is something else you see, that means you have got an error somewhere, because it will just stop running. Okay, you will see some errors here. So you always look for it before you actually start using the API for hitting and all those things. So now my API is running. All I have to do is to check it. I can simply say localhost and then 8085. So I will say localhost 8085 and I will say employee, and I see the result here. Okay, and if I see all employees, this is my another endpoint. If I say all employees, I see both the things, right? This is what we did yesterday, right? We had this API created, which is we have created a class. In class, we have this main method which runs the Spring Boot application, and then on top of it, I have two annotations: Spring Boot application and another is REST controller. REST controller is what makes me API a RESTful API which responds on HTTP protocol. So this is an important annotation. You need this, otherwise it won't behave the way it's behaving now. Second thing I did is added two methods. Let me make it a bit bigger for you guys to see. So I have added these two methods, which is one is this one, second is this one, right? And on top of it, I have two annotations, get mapping, and the two different endpoints. One is for employee, second is for all employees. Okay, and for now, I have kept this data hard coded within my code. Usually this data will not be here. This data will be present in the database from where I would query. My API would query the database, bring back the database, convert into JSON format and send it back to the client who asked for it. For now, I have kept it here itself because we don't have a database at the moment. So I have two endpoints. I have hard-coded data here, created the object, placed it here. Same thing I did here. But in this case, I have two employees. Both of them I have put inside something called as array list in Java. So I've done that here, and then I've added it into that array list and I'm sending it back. Return type of this is list of employee. This will convert automatic conversion from an object to a JSON format or JSON representation of that object. So every object in Java can be converted or represented as a JSON object as well. Okay, so that's what you see. That's why you are seeing this like this here. That's a JSON representation of this object. That is the right statement to say. Okay, now today we'll go a bit further, but before I do that, I need to explain you a few things on how to create an object. Okay, not really create an object, but how to, if I go here, this is the object which we create. This is the class or model of employee which we created, but we can make it better. If you remember, I have in my form file, I added a dependency called as Lombok, right? This is a dependency I added. This has a special case here, special use case here. I'll show you what that is because we are going to be using it extensively. If you see, when I run any program, right, when I compile it, it gets saved or it gets compiled into class files. So right now these are Java files, and when I run them, they get first converted to a bytecode, that is .class file format, and it gets placed under target folder. That's how Maven compiles it and places it. If I can open the classes, I can open the com example demo API model, and here if I go, I see all these things here, right? Because everything is converted to a .class file and it's coming here. Fine, nothing to explain here because that's what I have written here. But right now, this is making my code quite bulky, right? Lot of redundant details here. So I have a lot of getters, I have a lot of setters, and this is making my file quite bulky. I have constructor, I have empty constructor, no argument constructor. This is my argument constructor. But this is making my file quite bulky. There's a way to reduce the amount of code you are writing in your code. Okay, in your files. There's a way to do that. All this is actually called as boilerplate. right? So all this is boilerplate code, a code which has no real significance. It doesn't capture any business logic. It doesn't capture anything significant, which is any specification of the application. It captures nothing. It just is unnecessary code, a redundant code, which is just making the file bulky. Okay. So there's this library. There's this library called as Lombok. This is a library Lombok. I have added this as a dependency in my POM file here. And what it does is it helps us automatically create these and add them in my class files without me having to add them in my source code, original source code. Okay, but you can still argue we are not even writing this, right? We generated it. So you can generate it from here. That's how I generated in yesterday's session, right? Of course, that's one way, but then you keep it as a part of your source code. How can I do something wherein I don't have to keep it there, but still it presents itself when you compile it? How to do that? That is using Lombok. Okay, so let me explain you. I will just remove all of that from here. I'll just remove it. Removed. Now my class files looks very simple. Model file is looking very simple, isn't it? I go back to my application and it will start showing errors. Why? Because I don't have getter and setters. There's no getter setters available because I removed them. I just removed them setters. All the setters, I removed them from my file. Now what I do is, if I show you here, I simply write an annotation getter, or I write an annotation setter. So these are the two annotations coming from Lombok. Okay, it's coming from Lombok. What this does is, at runtime, when you run this, when it's compiled, it automatically injects the data, the required things which I have added as annotation. So when I say add the lit setter, when I say add the lit getter, it will inject it. Injection means it will place it inside this class which will appear in the target. So if I show you an example of it, by the way, if I go back here, you would see all the errors are gone. There's no errors available. Why? Because it has automatically injected it. I can show you that here. Okay, under classes, I can show you that here. Right now, if you see, all this is available because it's been it was, this is coming from an old compilation. Let me run the compilation again. So I'll say maven clean. Clean means remove the target folder, and maven clean, and I'll say install. So it's doing something, it's compiling, running some tests, which I don't have at the moment, but it's indeed running it. And if I go back again here, this will be refreshed. If I go back, I see all the things again here. You see, even though they are not here, if you see, don't have anything here. I don't have anything here. I just have the attributes, nothing else. But if I go back here, I still can see all the things. From where they are coming? They are coming from Lombok. You see, annotations are removed. There are no annotations here at the moment. But the Lombok has removed the annotations, but it has put everything, all the required getter setters directly here. Now you notice here, you have a single constructor, but you don't have any argument constructor. There's a way to do that in Lombok. You come here, you add at the rate all argument constructor. Okay, and you will see the magic now. So here you don't see anything here. No, it's just one constructor, one simple plain constructor, which is what's happening. Let me make it bigger. Right here, you have just one constructor, this one. But now I have added one more annotation here called as all arguments constructor. And when I do the same thing again, let me skip the test this time. This -d skip tests. Okay, there's an error now. There is a compilation problem which is here. Okay, I will have to add one more, which is no argument constructor. Otherwise, this will give error. Now error is gone. I will run it again. Okay, success. Now if I go back, my classes, and this time I should see one more constructor, which is this one. This was not there before. This has just come. Why it has come? Because I have added no arguments constructor. Okay. So this is our use case of Lombok. It is extensively used everywhere in any Java project, anywhere in the world. Everyone uses this. Almost everyone uses this. Only one caveat here: before you actually use it and you make it work, you have to do something. That is, you have to go to File. You have to go to your settings. In my case, it will be Preferences. So I have to go to File Settings. I will go to, in my case, it's a Mac system, so I will use Preferences, and I'll go to Plugins. Under Plugins, you have to install this Lombok plugin there. Okay, you have to search for Lombok and you have to install it. From here, you have to go to Marketplace. You have to search for Lombok, and you have to install this one. Why I can't see it here? I think I already have it installed, so I don't see it. Otherwise, you will see it under Marketplace. This one, because I have already installed it. You will see this here. Okay. It also tells you, see, a lot of what kind of things it can do, all the annotations it has for you to really remove your boilerplate code and inject the methods. You see, there's one more thing called as toString. I'll show you that also. So right now, if you see in the employee, there's employee constructor, this, and then their setters and their getters, and then that's it. There is no toString method, right? A toString method is important where if you say employee object dot toString, it should give you a string representation of the data. That is what toString means basically. So usually your objects or classes should always have a toString method. How we do that? It's quite simple in Lombok. You simply say toString. When you do that, and when I run it again, you will see a toString method being added automatically. You won't see that here, but it will be available after you compile it, which is here. So that means when you run it, it will be available. If I go back again here, I would see a toString method also. You see toString method, and all it does is when you invoke .toString on this object, then you will get the string representation of it, the actual all the values for this object. Okay, any questions so far on uses of Lombok? Okay, fine. Next is how we make use of this, right? So you see, I have made my class quite simple. To move the boilerplate code, like getters and setters and constructors and toString, etc. Okay, now my class looks very simple, very clean now. Okay, I'll go back here. Okay, now Lombok gives one more thing here. The way you create object, that is what I started with. The way you create objects. Right now, I am creating an object like this, and then I am using the setter methods basically to set the object, set the attributes of the object. But there is a better way of doing this. This is called as builder pattern. You can check it. It's a creationist design pattern. It's called as builder design pattern. I will put a link also for you to read about it. The idea of builder design pattern is when you want to create an object, when you want to create multiple objects, the simpler way is, of course, like this. You create an object and you set the values, right? But there is a better way of doing it. That is using a builder design pattern. For that, you need to structure or restructure your class file which you want to use as a builder. But again, and it's a lot of things you have to add here. You have to add a lot of classes, some inner class and some methods and a lot of things you have to do. But Lombok again makes it easy. Okay, how you do that? It's quite simple. Again, you use an annotation called as @builder, and you will use here setter prefix as with. Okay, and that's it. And now you see, now I'll tell you how this is used, and you will really get to know where you will use this. So now instead of creating an object like this, let me show it here. So instead of creating the object like above using setters. You will create the object in a very different way. So you will say employee, this is your name of the object. Then you will say employee. You will first of all notice I am not using new keyword here. I am simply saying employee, and I will say builder dot build, and then I will start adding the values. So I'll say dot with name. Guys, can you please go on mute? Okay, so I'm saying dot with. Ashwini, you have any question? Okay, guys, please be on mute if you're not speaking. So then I'll say dot with. I'll say ID as one, whatever. Ashwini, can you please go on mute? Okay, thank you. Ashwini, can you please go on mute, please? Thanks. So then I will say with ID, and then I would say with name. You see, all these methods are automatically coming. You see, these all are nothing but methods. But if you go back here, you won't see them. You will not see them. It has been automatically injected. Actually, rather, I should show you how these methods look like. I will again run the same thing again. Okay, so I will do this again. And since now I have added another annotation here, which with the name as @builder. And if I come back in the classes segment, okay, it has loaded now. If I go to model, now you will see a lot of methods. So you will see getter setters, of course, but then you will also see some inner class, and then you have builder classes with a lot of sub methods. These were not there before, isn't it? They are just being added by this annotation. Okay, and that's what I am actually currently using. So how I'm doing it? I'm using with all these methods to set my create my object. So I'll say name as this, and dot with all the attributes I can actually go and set from directly from here. From email as a@a.com, etc., etc. And this is called as method chaining. So let me remove only the syntax. This is called a method chaining. That means they are not separate statements like these. These are single statement. I'm chaining the whole thing. This is actually this concept itself is called as method chaining, and this is how builder design pattern is implemented. It's a single statement. Single statement, I can go and create my object. So this way of creating the object is far efficient and superior and readable than this way of creating the object. And whenever you want to create an object or set the attributes, you should always go for this kind of pattern, not this one. Okay, so now I will replace this. So instead of using this, I will do this. Oops. I should rather comment it so that you know what's the difference between these two. So instead of creating the object like above using setters, use builder design pattern, also known as method chaining. Okay, that's another thing on Lombok, and that's it. We'll not learn more of Lombok because that's exactly what you need. You don't need anything else apart from these annotations. These are pretty much it, what you would ever need out of Lombok. Of course, it provides few more useful annotations, but that is something which may take time for you to really explore them. For now, this is enough. Any questions so far on this one? And same way you can try doing this here. So instead of creating the object like this, let me replace them with this one. So instead of this, I will simply say here Sarang. I think it was with email or with age. With age as this, so I'll use this with age, and then email. Oh, email was also there. Sorry. So with name, okay, with name, with age, there was no ID, but let the ID remain. And with email as Sarang s. Right. So my first object is created, which is this one, and I will create the second object, employee 2. Okay, this will be more like this, something like this. Okay, fine. So instead of doing this, you will do this. Okay, my API would still just run just fine. So if I just pre-test my API, well, it's okay, fine with all the recent changes I've done, and it should succeed. Application up and running, and I can try running it again. Fine, my API is still running the same as before after the recent changes. Okay, I guess no questions on this. If there is any, please put on chat, or you can just ask, and I will move on to the next topic. Okay, the next topic here is something called as path variable. So I will show you how you can use this concept of path variable to pass something when you make a call to this API, so that the API knows what exactly you need. So for example, right now there are two endpoints here, employee, and then you have all employees. That means if you simply say employee, it returns just one, and when you say all employees, it return you all employees. Now let me restructure this a bit. So I will replace this, remove this entirely, and I will also remove these from here, and I will actually keep it at the top. Okay, so I will place it here, employee 1, employee 2. I will leave it this one here. I will deploy this again, and I will do this here. So now it looks pretty simple. I think let me remove this unnecessary code from here. Let me make it a bit cleaner, because I was explaining the concept. No need to keep these. All right, so now it's quite cleaner. My code looks very clean. I have moved these data at the top, and I have kept it like this. Now I'm going to add one more method here, and that method will be something which will take our argument, and that argument, based on that argument, I will decide which employee to return, whether to return employee 0, employee 1, or employee 2. Let me mark it employee 0. Okay, so either employee 0, employee 1, or employee 2. How to do that? So I simply would go ahead and write another method, public void, to make it a bit bigger. I will say public void, and I will say get employee. Okay, simple. And I will use annotation, the same annotation. Okay, so you see I am using the same annotation, but this time I will use an argument here. So I will say string, and I will say name. So I will, when I send the value as name as Akash, then it will return me this object. I will say name as Sarang. If it will return me this, I will say name as Manik. It will tell me this one. That's what I am trying to do here. Okay, and to do that, I have to append something here. So I will say in curly brackets, I will say name. Okay, now this should match my value here. Okay, and here I would say @path variable. So this is a new annotation I'm introducing now, which is path variable. How this is being used is, since this is name, this is put as path variable, whatever I am sending in the URL. So this, when I simply send this endpoint, it is only this much, then it reaches here. Then it is mapped with this, and this method will be called. But when I, from my browser, when I do this slash Akash, then it will call this method. That's how the Spring framework, the Spring Boot decides which method to call on what URL navigation. Okay, so when I simply say employee only this much, then this method will be called and employee 0 will be returned. When I say employee slash Akash, then this method, because this pattern is matching with this pattern, and it will actually go ahead and call this method because this will be matched. So from URL, this will be called, it will match to this pattern, and then it will call this method. Okay, and here I'm saying path variable, that means capture the value being passed in the URL in this variable. That's what it means. That's path variable, this is what it means. And then I can decide my logic here. So I can decide if, now I can use my if condition. I'm saying if name dot contains Akash, then return employee 0. Okay, because employee 0 is Akash, right? And then I can put another condition, else if name is this, contains Saran, then return employee 1. Else if contains Manish, then return employee 2. Okay, all right. But if someone sends something like this, then it doesn't match with anything, right? So I have to put an else condition also. So I'm saying if other than any of these is being sent by the user, I would return an error. Error, no such employee exists. Okay, and I will append the name here, what the user is being sending. Okay, and here it is saying the error, because of course the return type has to be employee here, so I'm returning this. Rather, I will make this as an object, because in the last else statement I'm not returning an employee, so it's giving me errors. I will simply say I want to return object, and this will solve the problem. Okay, as simple as that, and that's it. Now if I run this, I will rerun this. And if I run this here, if I simply say employee, let me make it bigger. If I simply say employee, I am being returned. If I say all employees, then all employees are being returned, right? So I return Sarang, I return Manish, okay? And if I say employee, but I say Akash, then I am being returned. If I say I'm being returned, if I say Sarang, then Sarang is being returned. This employee is being returned. If I say Manish, then Manish is being returned. Okay. And if I simply say something else, let's say Vikas, then it simply says error, no such employee exists, Vikas. You see, this is what I'm getting when I send something else. If I simply say Manish again, the right employee is being returned. So this is a path parameter, path variable. That means this is my whole URL. I have this endpoint, and whatever I'm sending after that endpoint becomes my path variable, and that I've configured here, something like this. This tells Spring that this is a path variable, and then using path variable notation, I capture this value being sent in URL from here and save it here so that I can use it in my business logic. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, fine. I'll move on to the next topic quickly. Now, next, what we will do is to add a post method. What is a post method? So far, what we were doing was just the get request, right? So we were passing the URL and sending a URL, and we were expecting a response, right? Simply saying passing the URL like this, endpoints like this, and this was returning me something. These all are an example of get request. So in an API, in a RESTful API, you have actually four operations. Okay, four operations looks like these. We have get request, you have post request, you have put request, and you have delete request. You have few more verbs. These are called as HTTP verbs. But for now, we will only focus on these four. Get, post, put, delete. Get is usually used for search or fetch the information. Post is used for create new thing, create new. Put is used for updating, updating existing entity, and delete is used for deleting the entity, as name suggests, as simple as that, deleting the entity. Okay, so now for this case, for so far what we've been doing was only the get one. We're only using the get request to fetch the data in different ways. So here simply simple endpoint, here all, and here it was also quite simple. Okay, but now I'm going to be adding a new thing. So I will be doing the post request this time. Okay, so I will go and create as a method. I will say public void, and this will remain void because I will not be returning anything. I can still return something in response to the operation, but for now I'll keep it void. And then I'll say create new employee. Okay, and here I will go ahead and write @post mapping, similar to when you have a get mapping, similar to for the post. As you see, post is for creating the new entity. So I'm using the post now, so I'll say post mapping, and I can still use the same endpoint. I need not change the endpoint. I can still say employee. So when someone sends employee here like this, and it is a post request, it will match to this method. So based on how I'm sending it, it will map this one. Okay, so now this becomes my post mapping, and here I can go and add my things. But what? Because now this time I am expecting something. I'm expecting something from the um, from the from the request, apart from the URL. So previously I was only sending the URL, but this time I need to also send what user I need to create, what employee I need to create. I still need to send some data, and that's why it will not be possible for me to use my browser anymore, because browser, all I can do is get request. Anything which deals with the get request, I can use the browser here to do that. But now I cannot, because browser doesn't let me submit the request in a plain format. So now I will be using curl command to do that. But before that, I need to configure my method properly. So right now I'm saying post mapping, and when this is the endpoint, and I will use another annotation called as request body. Now this request body means I'm expecting a body from here, from when this method is being called using this URL. I'm expecting a body out of this, and that's the reason I'm using request body, and I will have to capture this. I'm expecting a body of type employee, which can be converted to this object, this class. So I'm saying employee, and I'm capturing it with this object. So I'm saying employee, name of the class, employee, name of the object, and I'm saying request body. Okay, as simple as that. And now it's up to me what to do with this user. Okay, so what I will do is to modify this class a bit. So instead of putting this here, I will also put that at the top so that I can use it. Nothing changed in the existing functionality, it will still remain the same. And then what I will do is, when something is being sent here, I will go ahead and save it here. So I will simply come here, employee list, and I will say add, and I'll save employee here, something like this. And my post mapping is actually completed. And I'll show you the implementation of it, how this is going to work. But still, I will summarize this again. So I am here. I added a new method, create new employee, and I've mapped it with the post mapping here. The endpoint still remains the same, but this time I still need to send some data. The data is nothing but an employee, a JSON representation of the employee. It will come here and save in this object. This object, once it's received from this method, is going to be added in the employee list add. So I'm going to simply saying employee list add and name of the employee, and that will go and save here. And when I then run all employees, it's the data, whatever I've added newly, will also be displayed along with it. Okay. Now let me see how this is going to work. If I just refresh this, I rerun it, and this time I cannot call this API, the post method of this API from the browser. So I have to actually open my terminal and I have to run a curl command. So I'll show you how that curl command would look like. I think I will open a terminal to better show this. I'll open the terminal, make it a bit bigger. How to make it bigger? I don't know. I think like this, or never mind. I don't know. Let's not waste time. I'll still stick with this one then. So I'll simply say curl. You can zoom in your screen if you want to look at the statements. If you're not logged in from mobile, sorry, not logged in from laptop, you will find it difficult to see. But try to expand your screen. So I'll say curl hyphen x. Hyphen x means what operation I want to perform. I'll say post. I want to perform post operation. Then I have to enter the URL. So I'll say HTTP and then colon to forward slash and then localhost. I'll say localhost and 8085 because that's my port number. And then I'll simply say employee. When I say this, it will match mapped with this one. Why? Because this is my endpoint. That's what I present here. And then the post represent here, post mapping. Okay, so that's why, because of these two things, it will map here. Okay, after that, I need to provide a header because I am going to be sending some content, right? So I need to add a header to this request. I will say content type is equal to application slash JSON. See, few of these things, if you don't understand at the moment, it's okay. You can still remember them. You can still know later how the HTTP request is working, but you can, for now, you can still remember it. I would still ask you guys to go through this HTTP thing. I'll send you some links so that you can read about it. What is a header? What is HTTP work? HTTP is a packet which has two segments, header and body. For the header, I'm sending this. For the body, I'm going to be sending like this. I'll say -d, and now I can send to data in JSON format because from the textual, from the URL, all I can send is text. I cannot send a real object, right? So I will send something in JSON and the Spring will convert that JSON into an object. Okay. And then I will use my two braces, and here I can enter my value. So I can say name, and because I'm adding a new employee, isn't it? So I simply say, let's say new employee is Mark, for example. This is my new employee, and that's it. I'm just sending one attribute for it. I'm simply saying Mark, and when I say enter, it has added. There's no response because I'm sending void, so there will be no response for it. But I think I can validate it from the URL here. So if I say all employees now, let's see if it displayed. Do I see a mark here? I do see a mark. You see, so I see whatever I've sent from here, I see it here. Okay, why? Because I have created a new employee and I've added it to the list. So now when I say all employees, I also see Mark. I can run it again. I can run it many times. Instead of Mark here, I can write here William or something. And when I say all employees again, I still see, where is it? I think there's too many. I think there's a small bug. I think it's being added multiple times. Oops. Let me say all employees again. All employees and William. Here it is. So it's being added. Okay, but there is some defect because of which it's being the sarang is being added multiple times. I know the defect. That is, I am adding it again and again here multiple times. So that's the reason it's being added again and again. How I can remove this? Okay, let's fix it later. But the point of this post request is quite straightforward, right? So I'm simply saying post, and it is adding my details here, employee ID. Okay, and later what we will do is, because this is not the right way, this is just in-memory data structure I'm using to save the data, but later on we would need an actual database. So later on we will replace all this with an actual database wherein all this details will be go and will be saved. I want to cover it today, but I don't want to. I still don't know where you guys are. I don't want to cover a lot of topics in these calls unless I really know you guys are trying it, you guys are getting it, which I'm not very sure of at the moment. So I will stop here and I will give you 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever time you want to ask questions. I'll take a pause now. Okay, sorry, no questions so far. So I think I can call it a day. I still would expect you guys to give it a try. Without giving it a try, there's no point of me proceeding further. So please, I request again, give it a try and ask questions. Okay, thanks everyone. If you still have something, you can ask in chat. I will send all this code and PDF for part of it directly there. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.